Hello, great people of Zimbabwe. This is Pepe Begede, who is the Secretary of Information and Publicity for Maat Zimbabwe Party, that we actually boycotted these elections because of but let me put it in twofold, because of two reasons. First of all is because we had to carry out an assessment of the electoral field to ascertain whether it was something that was free and fair, and we actually discovered that there were certain anomalies within the electoral system that led us to come up to a point whereby we had to say we are not participating in these elections. So in a way, I'm saying we did not participate, we are not fielding any candidates, we did not also field the presidential candidate based on the things that I've highlighted. Because for us to contest in any election, there has to be a fair ground. Some of those things include that we should have a fair coverage. The viewers should know a lot about us, and the public media, the state media should allow us to be aired on the national broadcaster, which is the ZBC, which is one of the things that they didn't do. So if we are to look at it, we found and we realized that there were a lot of anomalies, and we decided not to field candidates. And the second one is based on the fact that our option was to field a House of Assembly candidates throughout the country, but because the ZAC administration, which is an electoral board for the country, for Zimbabwe, they gave us on short notice that they had hiked the fees for our legislators, even for the presidential candidates. These are some of the things that led us not to contest, because as our organization believes, we believe in the fact that we should have more representatives first before we field a presidential candidate, because what people want on the ground are representatives, which are members of parliament who are very key to lobby even certain legislative laws which are critical in our nation. We are talking about electoral reforms, and there are a lot of human rights issues that need to be addressed in our country. So, as a matter of fact, these are some of the things in a nutshell that led us not to participate. So the hiking of the fees was a detriment to us, because I thought that the ZAC the administration had to do it well before election time, but they decided to do it when we had already approached the election season, and such huge hikes were very detrimental to us. So it was, in a way, something that also led us not to participate in this election. It was unfair. Right, let me basically say that Maat has structures in all the 10 provinces, and we are recruiting, and those who are willing to join our organization are very free. And one of the things that are very important and integral about Maat Zimbabwe is that the people that we want to take over or to participate in elections should be good. We don't want to recycle certain people. Say someone is left his NPF, then he used to be a member of parliament, he jumps on to Maat and he says he wants to contest. We want new people. There are no new people out there with fresh ideas who have the heart of Zimbabwe, to change things. These are the kind of people that we really want to come forth to join Maat, so that we pave way for a new democratic transition, even an economic transition.
So you are still on a recruitment drive?
We are in a recruitment drive, and we are welcoming everyone. And what we are hoping for is that this institution, this organization becomes bigger, that ZANU-PF becomes bigger than CCC.
You've mentioned that you have structures across the country's 10 provinces, but we are yet to see visibility of your party.
Yes, the visibility part, as I stated earlier on, is based on what the journalists of this country do. Because what we are seeing mostly is that the journalists of this country, they either concentrate on ZANU-PF or CCC, and they neglect these smaller parties, and it appears as if these smaller parties are doing nothing, which is very wrong. It seems that our journalists are working for something that I would say, you give us something so that we cover whatever event that you are doing, which is corruption in a way. We are looking at a system whereby journalists are open. You can see, for example, my brother, that you are coming from as far as Kwekwe to come and interview someone who is in Harare. But are there no journalists in Harare? There are plenty of journalists, but they decide not to cover smaller parties mainly because some of them, they are looking at what you have to give them in return for covering them, which is very myopic. And I think that if journalists out there are hearing this, they need to reform. We're talking about reform, electoral reforms, we're talking about every individual reforming. This is very key for our nation to move forward.
You've mentioned that as a smaller party, you have something to offer to the people of Zimbabwe. What are you offering currently in the body politic of the country?
One scenario that we are seeing is that as Africans, we are too much dependent on other countries. And the economics of Africa is being controlled outside. We have, after colonization, we adopted everything, and minus what we believe in. You see, so in a scenario, those kind of situations is what is causing economies and political systems of Africans not to be stable. So as Maat Zimbabwe, we are saying we want to change the status quo of our politics, of our economy, and our social aspects. By that I mean to say our cultural issues should be, and our traditional issues should be embraced and should be kept intact, so that we don't drive away the things that are important about African people themselves. But about Maat Zimbabwe, we are saying we are an organization which represents the political, economic and social transition for an African people and for an African environment. Well, these are the very critical and important aspects as we look at Africa in a broader spectrum, because what we are seeing is that Africa is mainly dependent on what other nations are doing. And in the end, there is still a form of slavery, because the way we do things is that we are dictated upon by other nations, by what we call the global village. And in a way, what we have discovered as Maat Zimbabwe is that African people are a particular people who have their own ways, who should be having their own mechanisms of governing their politics, governing their economics, and governing their social aspects. So these are three things. If they are not looked at, we will still have a problem in Africa, because what we need, we want to have an economic system that is specifically designed for African environments. We should have a political system that should be designed for African people, so that we get rid of the violent nature that are building up in Africa. You see, if you look across Africa, you see there are a lot of coups that are happening, and military instabilities and political instabilities. These are caused because mainly, as an African people, the way we were groomed is that we develop as a group and not as individuals. If you go to Europe, people are comfortable when they think of developing themselves as individuals. But as Africans, if we look at our background, we develop as communities, as village. So Maat Zimbabwe, what we want to do is to introduce what is called a community-based economic system, whereby communities are empowered to develop themselves. This concept of individualism in Africa does not really work. That's why we are seeing all these kinds of instabilities. What we need as Africans is to come together and sit down and see the kind of mechanisms and political situations and scenarios that we should foster for our African environment. And if those things are put in place, I think those are the things that will bring solutions to our economies. Because what we are seeing is we try to follow the individual aspect is corruption. And we cannot weed out corruption in our societies, because as Africans, we are united people, we develop as communities. But when we kill that, we are allowing corruption to take place.
In 2018.
Yes, in 2018 we contested and we did fairly well because it was our first time to be involved in any election. So we did well. We fielded House of Assembly members, and we also fielded which we call councillors. We also fielded them, and we did comfortably well. But because the kind of situation in Zimbabwe and the political environment is, it seems that it was confined that only people become active towards elections. And there is no coverage of what other political parties are doing during the journey towards the elections, which is very wrong and which is also even, in a way, killing developmental issues. If politics is active throughout the season, the 5-year period, you see even legislators do more than what they will be doing if there is a reluctant atmosphere, no coverage of other political parties.
Okay, 18. We had that same situation, but you contested nonetheless. What has changed this year?
There is nothing that changed. In fact, things have get even worse because when political parties are deprived from contesting because ZEC just unilaterally decides to hike fees beyond the limits of many political parties, you can see most of the parties failed to field their candidates because of the unfair hike of fees.
Right. In councils, being a council member, it was free. Why didn't you field candidates in councils?
The most important thing is for us to field members of parliament. So just contesting in council elections was not really fair for us. What was most important was for us to field the House of Assembly members and also to field the presidential candidate.
Why is it you put much emphasis on House of Assembly members and not council?
House of Assembly members are key because we are talking about many reforms that need to be done for our country to run smoothly. You see, the way we are seeing things, there is lack of transparency in how even funds are being handled by the state, by the government that is in place. So for us to have a voice, we discovered that it is more important for us to participate in the parliamentary election and also as well in the presidential elections.
If I got you right, your party is a grassroots party which is embedded in the communities, and the councillors are embedded in the communities. Don't you think there's now a contradiction here whereby you're dismissing the same grassroots individuals who will be pushing development from a grassroots perspective whilst you'll be aiming for parliament?
You see, what we are saying is you have to study the nature of politics in the setup you are. You see, once you only participate in a council elections and you leave this whole gap of being more visible in the parliament and even in the presidential, you are limiting yourself, especially given the context of Zimbabwean politics. What is more key in Zimbabwean politics for you to have more influence is when you participate in the parliamentary elections. This is very key. So for us to go back to only words, people will be asking more questions about who is the MP and who is the president, and we have a big task of trying to explain a lot of information to the people that we have a president who is not visible, we have a parliament, a candidate who is seeking to vie for a parliamentary seat who is not visible. We decided as a party that this will not be very important and a very tactical way of dealing with the situation.
Under the circumstances of you not participating, do you think people in Zimbabwe will take you seriously as a smaller political party?
Yes, if given the room that we explain why, as we are doing now, we are telling people a lot of anomalies which are in the electoral system. And so when people learn about that, they will see the reason why we have decided, if we had maybe chosen to be silent and be ignorant about the situation that is currently happening, people wouldn't be seeing us as a serious party. But the fact that we are taking a step and having journalists coming and broadcast our reasons, that is key. One of the important issues when you see even fellow opposition party members being incarcerated in prisons, for just demonstrating, which we believe that for one to demonstrate, it is a right which is enshrined in the Constitution. But you see a person like Job Scala going for over a year in prison for just questioning the government why they are letting certain unruly elements go as far as beating up and killing opposition members. That is not unfair. So also the other reason why we have boycotted is to show that we are sincere about the situation that Job Scala is going through. We are very sympathetic, and we want to identify ourselves with such a man like Job Scala, who is also fighting for human rights. The issue and the matter is that there has to be a fair ground for political parties to have these elections. If there is no a fair play, then what was the reason for us to participate in this election? So I request even Zimbabwe at large that before we think about elections, let's first talk about the fairness and the level, the freeness of people at large, the public people. Are they part and parcel of this whole scenario? If there is no fairness, there is no need for us to have elections in Zimbabwe. What I can actually say is that all other political players at this time, including CCC, they must look at this option of withdrawing from these elections because the environment is not right. This is the number one thing. There are no electoral reforms that are in place. So it will not be important for someone to decide to participate. Then afterward, after the results have been announced and they've discovered that they couldn't make it, then they start highlighting these issues. These issues should be highlighted now, so that we give enough pressure to the electoral body, which is ZEC, that they have to look into these issues that people are complaining about. People are complaining about the voters' roll. These voters' roll must be looked into. Yes, you don't need to thoroughly think about that. It is given. You can see the events that are happening, that everything is steeped for the ruling party to win. And I can tell you that given this scenario, they will win resounding, because they are controlling every apparatus that has to give them an unfair advantage over every other political party. Okay, let me conclude by saying that it is beyond our purpose to try and liquidate the validity and the authenticity of some issues that are standing erect before us, and that we can actually see that they are not normal in our political and electoral environment. Just for the sake of wanting to say that we're participating in an election, it is not very important for us to participate, given the scenario and the situation that we are seeing. Zimbabweans, I call upon you to heed to my call that now is the time for us all to unite in this one common goal. And this common goal is for them to demand a free, fair,